Hello, everyone, and welcome to our December Ask TLC, Navigating Relationships with Adult Children. Our presenters today are Marsha Grabois and Diane Vasaturo, both who are social workers and members of Transition Life Consultants. We hope you enjoy what they are presenting today and find it very useful. So I'll give it to Diane to begin.
Good morning, everyone. Just want to start. I think most of us are parents who are signed up to watch this, but I'm going to talk about parents and the adult children. So as we're raising our children, we naturally accept the fact that there are going to be some ups and downs, joys and challenges, and there are. Never can they be anticipated. What we don't expect when we start out raising our children is down the road, we might have some sadness and some hard times with the parent and adult relationship. And that's more what we're going to talk about today. As a social worker and therapist, I hear stories of frustration and heartbreak from adult children about their relationship with one or both parents. I also hear stories from the parents about their sadness, disappointment, and grievances regarding their relationship with their adult children. Adult children sometimes report that their parents are unwilling to acknowledge the sometimes harmful manner or culture in which they were raised. The parents say that their adult children are rewriting their childhood slanted toward the negative. While we all have our viewpoints, this does not have to be an impasse. Discontent or strife between parents and adult children has been around forever. However, today's times, the children seem to be a little more outspoken and vocal. The younger generation often does not want the status quo. The older generation may struggle with their place and their value in their adult children's life. We each have our own lens, and we see things differently. Parents may not feel that they are appreciated or acknowledged for all the ways they showed love, commitment, maybe even sacrifice. They may be accused of things they can't see or understand. The adult children are reflecting back to what would now be considered shaming or unsupportive. Our adult children develop their own idea of what a healthy relationship is like with their parents going forward. At the same time, the parents are not always prepared to make changes in this dynamic that they've practiced for many, many years. If the adult child marries or has a partner, this can really complicate things. If you want a relationship with your adult child, you really should strive to make every effort to befriend the partner. The adult child and their partner may want to set boundaries on how the parents interact with them. This is important for both the parent and the child. I'm going to give you just some examples as I go along. Sorry. And these are examples of poor boundaries, so keep that in mind. And I hear this and read this one a lot. Making unexpected and frequent visits. So unexpected is the key word here. Don't just pop in without any warning or okay from your child or their partner. Unsolicited input about the adult child's partner. This is not going to be helpful to the child, and it's not going to be helpful to the relationship. Here's another one, unsolicited advice about how grandchildren are being raised. Very tempting, but don't do it. This can feel like criticism. And just on a personal note, I have to say, I have three children, and they all have children, some of whom are adults now, and I'm expecting three great grandchildren next year. But believe it or not, some of their ways are better than mine. So have an open mind listening to that and don't be too quick to criticize. Another thing, don't go in their home and take it upon yourself to redecorate. You can ask, would you like this or would you like that for your home? But don't take it upon yourself. It gives the message that they're not competent, they're not able to do this. And you know what? They have their own style, and it might not be yours. Probably isn't. Let them decide what their own style is. Um, don't make frequent comments to your child about their dieting, their eating habits, or their body appearance. We could all use a little help in that area. I know I can, but tread lightly. Don't jump in to do that. They'll be okay. Um, in other words, don't interfere with their personal life, and the boundaries are important. Okay, we've gone a few years to have adult children now. So recognize that our roles have changed. The parent's role is no longer to manage or correct, but to mentor, to support and accept the adult child. Allow them to direct their own lives, showing them the respect that they need. You respect their independence and their ability to make their own decisions. Respect your child's autonomy and boundaries. Recognize that they have a right to have their own beliefs and values. That can be a tough one if your children all of a sudden or gradually are changing from what the values in their home with you were. Um, Now, there may be occasions where you'll need to take ownership of some past behavior and apologize. We all make mistakes. None of us are perfect. Maybe we were overly critical. Maybe we didn't listen enough. Whatever the case, take responsibility, and that apology can go a long way for any shortcomings or mistakes, whether they were recent mistakes or years ago. That can just be hanging on for the child that we thought wasn't a problem. It might still be for them. It can go a long way in healing and strengthening a relationship. When you offer a genuine apology without excuses, you show the adult child that you're willing to learn and change going forward. It opens the door for the adult child to feel heard and validated, and that validation is so important. This goes both ways. The child certainly may have been disrespectful or worse over the years, and they can take a part in that and take some responsibility for what may have been behavior that wasn't appropriate. So allow your child to make their own mistakes. One of the most difficult aspects of raising a child and watching your adult child is watching them make their own mistakes. On the other hand, mistakes can be a very important source of learning and growing. Think about it. I know that have learned over my lifetime, and I grow more when I'm having tough times, when I'm in that valley, whether it's mistakes, whether it's health issues. I learn more about myself and grow more in that valley. When I'm on the mountaintop, I don't need to grow. I don't need to change. I'm happy. Everything's wonderful. But during your mistakes we learn by what that phrase, we learn by our mistakes, there's some truth to that. So step back, let them make their own decisions, show trust in their ability to manage their own lives. There may be a severe situation that would warrant something else, another intervention. But in general, they need to learn as adults to cope and get through those times. Address problems and resolve disagreements constructively. Good communication is the foundation of any strong relationship. It becomes more important when your children are adults. Okay, live your own life. Spend quality time with your children, yes, but it's also important for both of you to have your own space, your own interests, your own goals, and your own friendships. This prevents an overdependence on your relationship. By maintaining your own life, you give your adult children space to grow and to do the same thing, to have their own lives. And at the same time, it's important to be a source of support for your children and also recognize that as we age, we may need the support of our children to help us as we enter a new phase. Tips for parents to strengthen the relationship with adult children. These kind of go without saying, but it's important. Create a supportive, non-judgmental environment, a safe place for both the parent and the child to feel heard. Encourage adult children to share their thoughts and their feelings by creating this non-judgmental environment and actively listening. Listening is so important. It's also important to allow adult children to have a voice in how they felt about the child-parent relationship. Sorry. Take time to reflect back what you're hearing them say and show empathy. It doesn't mean that you always agree with them, but just recognize and validate their feelings. Communicate with love and respect. Shutting the child down can lead to estrangement, and sometimes it's over a minor incident. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It's amazing, but it can just go on and lead to an estranged relationship. Both sides need to have a chance to view their past and their needs for the future. What do both of you want the relationship to look like going forward? Rewrite what will work for both of you. Agree on boundaries. Building a stronger relationship with your child is an ongoing process. It doesn't happen overnight, and it just continues as you both learn and grow. By shifting from a directive role that we had when our children were younger to one of mutual respect and offering support without controlling, you're likely to create a relationship that is more satisfying for both of you. Family therapy is always an option and should be recommended if needed. And it doesn't always have to be family therapy. It could be individual therapy because it's not always possible to do the family therapy, but the individual therapy can help. A trained therapist may be needed to help parents and adult children to heal the distance between them. We tend to think we're listening most of the time, but we might be blinded by our own thoughts and feelings. It's essential for true listening to occur, and a therapist can guide the communication toward healing. Now I'd like to introduce Marsha, a fellow social worker with TLC. She'll continue with additional thoughts and parent-child relationships, and she's also going to provide us with some interesting examples. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Glad you could make it. I wanted to give you some hope if you're here because there has been a strain with the adult children. The reason being that I've been privileged this year to work with a mother and daughter, both of whom are villagers, adult child and mother, and they are pretty much done with their counseling because they've done such remarkable work. And it really has made me feel very pleased that you can make a difference. But through a lot of tears, it wasn't easy for them. They worked hard, both of them, and they learned some basic principles. I mean, we who are therapists have some basic things that we always recommend. such as never start with you, start with I feel, is always really important in talking to people. The reason being that you puts the person, puts the other on the defensive, and then they get their back up. This mother and adult child really learn their own role in everything. And so it made a real difference. And it's how you hear things. I will use a perfect example. My own daughter came to me one day and said, I feel that you favored my brother when I was growing up. Well, that's like, whoa. But fortunately, both my daughter and I are counselors. And so I was able to say to her, honey, you're right. Because that was her feeling. That was what's important to her. But I saw the truth in that her brother, who was 5 years older, was a child with special needs. So he got the bulk of my attention. And so when my daughter, she was the easy child. So when she felt less important, I can understand her feelings. She was dragged to everything from visiting colleges to his activities, and she didn't get that individual attention. Even though there was 5 years between them, she got me at home for a little bit, but she did not get what she felt was sufficient attention. And there was a good reason, but again, I could be in a position to hear her, and she heard me, and I apologized to her. And now we've become very, very close, and we're able to communicate. Even when something hurts our feelings, we can talk to each other. And I feel like that's so important to be able. So the most important thing I'm trying to emphasize here is the fact that when your child tells you they feel a certain way, you do not want to say, no, you're wrong. Keep in mind that within one family, children can feel differently about the parent. My husband and his sister had completely different views of their parents. And that is one of the reasons is that the parents are different depending upon when that child was born and raised. So it's very natural for children to see their parents differently than one another. But if they can't communicate that, or the parents can't hear it, then that impasse continues quite a long time. So it's important to acknowledge your child's feelings, even though it hurts. It definitely feels painful, but it's important for you to begin the dialogue with them and hear from their perspective. Give you another example. Respecting boundaries is so important. I can remember that when I was first married, my father and mother, who lived in Florida, would come to visit, and my father was one of these people that always had to stay busy. So he took it upon himself to clean the garage. Well, he was so upset that my husband did not appreciate that, because to my husband's view, it was like saying, well, you're very disorganized and this is a mess. That's the message my husband heard. My father was devastated because it wasn't appreciated. So the idea is to always ask, is there something you'd like my help with? Is there something I can do? But be careful not to send the messages, my way is right and I'm better at this, or I'm more organized, or I'm whatever. I've had to put that in practice because I had my children late in life, and my daughter, who has a child late in life, I go visit back in my hometown, and I'm very careful not to say, I ask first, would you like me to do this? Do you want me to do that? I'm very careful not to say, oh, I'll clean that stove because it's a mess. Never, ever tell them how to do things. I am struck by how different things are with babies today than they were when we were, raising them. I mean, we put them on the, what is it? We put them on the back. They put them on the stomach. Everything is different. They introduce solid foods differently. Everything is different than when. So if we try to say, this is the way you should do it, their pediatrician is going to say, no way, we don't do that anymore. We have more science, we have more knowledge. Everything is different. So who are we to tell them how to raise their children? So again, it's important to zip our lips and not say things, but ask if we can be of help to them. But it's important to keep a relationship honest with them and be able to speak clearly. And again, don't start with you or they're going to be fighting with you the night and day. Unfortunately, difficulties between adult children and parents is a common thing. So I think it's made worse lately. I really feel like these Hallmark movies now in the holidays of these beautiful families, these perfect families, that doesn't exist to that extent. Families get together, they fight, they have differences of opinion. Within my own family, my two children have very different political views. I don't get in the middle of that. I stay out of that. And if they want to argue, that's up to them, but I don't involve myself whatsoever in that. I once had a client years ago, to give you another example, who she surprisingly, she came in the summer months rather than the winter months like most people do. And she had come every year to the villages, and she was totally estranged from her daughter and barely speaking with the son. And the daughter would say she didn't want her to use pronouns. And the mother had deep found religious beliefs. And so things weren't going too well for them. But I'll never forget the day the mother said to me, I want to have a relationship with my child. So therefore, I'm going to hear from her perspective. So having a relationship with her child was more important than her religious beliefs, than anything else. And so they repaired that relationship to the best they could. So again, if you have an estrangement with your children, and it isn't not uncommon, the idea is to look, what are you trying to gain? Are you trying to win your point of view and tell them they're wrong, or are you trying to have a relationship? And a relationship means that people don't always think alike, even with spouses. They have different points of view. I mean, it's not uncommon. No two people are going to think exactly alike. But the idea is to not impose your views on them and vice versa. I think it's really hard because as parents, we were devoted parents. We took care of them. And then suddenly they're telling us, back off, we don't need you anymore. Well, that's not easy. That's not easy for us because we feel like I was such a good parent. And now you're telling me mind my own business. So it's very hard. And we, the adults, have a certain sadness over that because we want to protect them. We want to save them from poor decisions or addictions or whatever. But the fact remains that we can't. We can only offer help. We can offer an ear. We can offer a lot of things, but we can't tell them how to solve their problems. And that is responsible for what I think is the majority of estrangement between adult children and parents. It's hard to let go. And I think everyone in this room has had an experience where they feel like, oh my goodness, I don't agree with what he or she is doing. And we worry about their welfare, and we worry about all kinds of things, but we can't change it. So again, we wanted to open this up, Diane and I, to the group, to be able to discuss your situations, and what we could recommend or you could do to improve the relationship, because I assume we're all here trying to improve relationship with our children. So I'd like to open it up, Lucille, to everybody to ask questions.